Ahla wa sahlan, bienvenidos. Welcome back to my channel. This video I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why we tend to shy away from silence, in the society we live in with the streaming and music and noise just everywhere, and you don't really have to get away, it's everywhere. And then also to counteract that, the 3 reasons why we need silence and why we shouldn't shy away from it. If you're new to this channel or if you're returning, in this channel I share with y'all what I'm learning to grow and to know how to live well in Christ. So if you want to grow and know with me, please hit the subscribe button and also click the reminder bell so you never miss a video from me. When I make these videos, I usually get what I'm going to say out of my prayer time from God. He just, like the past 2 videos, he pretty much just told me what to say right before I was about to film. So I was grateful because he came to the rescue right when I needed him to. But today, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm ready for you to tell me what's right. And usually it's like right away, or like I'm even brushing my teeth and he's like, okay, say this, this, and this, and this, and this. I'm like, thank you, that's great. Today, when I tell you it was silent, I felt that silence and I wasn't doing anything and I was just like, this is excruciatingly painful. It ended up me coming to this video and this conclusion and me reflecting on like why silence is such a big issue in our society, in our culture, in our world, that we don't like to sit in silence. I know meditation is a big thing now, so I know it's growing in a way, but at the same time, easy access to stuff and things that we can listen to is also growing. Whether it's podcasts, Netflix, streaming, Disney Plus, Spotify, and busy schedules, us wanting to, grow, be successful, we never sleep, those things. So we never allow time for silence. So I was reflecting on that and realizing so we need, maybe I should talk about this. When I think about the people who are struggling that I know, and how I was struggling and, still do sometimes, of course, a lot of it can be because we don't allow silence in our lives, in our days, in our day-to-day times, and allow that to reflect and pray and listen to the Spirit. So I was like, okay, God, I got your point. This is important. I should talk about it. Because I was a little weary. I was like, does anyone really need this? But then I was like, yes. So the first reason why we tend to shy away from silence, and what I mean by silence, I mean dead, nothing. As in, obviously you're gonna have outside noise, but no music, no TV, no people talking to you, no you talking to people, that kind of silence. It doesn't have to be an all-day thing, an everyday thing. Never listen to anything ever in your life and never speak. Though some have taken vows of silence and I've heard how it works well for them. For me, I'm not gonna do that. It doesn't have to be sitting and just being like this. It could be, but I know for me, unless I'm fully awake, I will go to sleep. Just right there on the ground, just fall dead right there, asleep. Unless God is really talking to me, then I'm really paying attention, but yeah. So what I've learned to do is sometimes I take walks, sometimes I stretch while I'm cooking, I don't listen to something, or when I'm driving instead of turning on the radio sometimes. Things like that where you can't allow for silence in your life without always, taking time out, but I think sometimes that is good as well. But it doesn't have to be just you sitting and then fall asleep. A big reason why we tend to shy away from silence, and I know this from people that I know, but definitely with me, why I never want it to be in silence, ever. Just don't catch me alone, is because what I see with others, we tend to not want to hear our own thoughts. We don't want to get consumed in our thoughts because they're not good thoughts, or we tend to go down a rabbit hole of worry and never get out. So whether we're often thinking of negative thoughts, depressing thoughts, anxious thoughts, things we're worried about, we don't want to be kind of consumed in that. So we get away from our own thoughts by going to TV or going to music or going to friends. We don't want to be left alone. It makes it hard to go to sleep at night, or it makes it hard when we wake up and we're still stuck with our own thoughts, and it's hard to get out of bed, or it's hard to be away from your dreams, or Yeah, so we want to fall asleep to music or something like that, just because we just don't like what we think about. We don't like to be consumed by our thoughts. But the thing about that is, when we're not allowing silent time to be able to hear our thoughts and sort through our thoughts, we're not allowing time to be able to solve our problems that we could have solved if we just thought it through, or we're not allowing ourselves to really think about why we're having those anxious thoughts, or why we're worrying so much, why we're going down rabbit holes, why we're depressed, all those things. We have to self-reflect and think about those things on the why and understand in order to get out of them. So for me, the biggest reason I didn't want to be in silence is because I would just think about, oh my goodness, my mom, she has to have brain surgery. This is back when my mom had to have brain surgery. So I was crying about that. I was sad about it, and was just thinking about all the bad things that could come from brain surgery, all the worst thoughts. Or I was thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm single, I'm so lonely. Thinking about those things, or thinking about, oh my gosh, like all these insecure thoughts or whatever, or like worry about school, because at that time I was in college, all these things. And because I wanted to avoid the negative thoughts, I just went away from them and acted like they weren't thoughts and kind of drowned them out. But instead I needed to address them, which is what I ended up doing. I addressed the negative thoughts. Why was I upset about my mom's surgery? One, I should have been happy that she could have brain surgery in the first place. Was there a lack of trust in God, that I was so worried that this would happen, this would happen, this would happen? I wasn't thinking about who God is, and that he's, our provider, in control, and he's a healer, and all these great things that the Lord is, right? Why was I thinking these anxious thoughts, and how can I combat them? What was going on with me that was making me sad, and those things. So I was able to self-reflect. I was able to go to the Bible to know what was up and what I needed to combat. I was able to recognize every single lie that the devil tried to come at me with. The lies that the devil may speak to me or to you all could be, you're not worth it, God's given up on you, you've messed up too many times. Or all of those gifts that you thought you had, they're not that great. Don't you see other people that have these gifts? They're so much better. There's no point of even trying to use them. So you might as well just give up and try something else. Or no one really loves you. Or your personality kind of sucks. It's kind of boring. Like, sorry, you're just not as great as other people. You should not have any other friends. Like, you should just be alone. Like, I don't even know why you have friends. These are terrible lies that the devil can really speak to your mind. But when we're sitting in silence and hearing those thoughts, those lies that come to our mind, we can combat them. We can recognize the lies, write them down, and then look up scriptures to know why they're not true. Sometimes it's hard to recognize the lies, but even if a thought comes to mind and it makes you feel terrible about yourself or about someone else, writing that down, recognizing it, that it's negative, and seeing what the truth is behind it. Sitting in silence also allows us to know when we are wrong in something, allow God to convict us when we are wrong, help us to remember something, even if it's like, for me, I'm like, dang, I messed up in my budget, I gotta change that. Like, those thoughts can come when you're in silence because you're not consumed with a lot of distractions. When we have to make a big decision, whether it's where to go to school, or whether it's what job to apply for, whether it's who to marry, I don't know, some big decision, when you're consumed with all these distractions, you're hearing other people's thoughts, you're hearing other people's advice, or you're hearing, what other people say. You're not even thinking about what you're supposed to be thinking about to make this decision. But allowing silence can help us reflect and think through and ask for and receive wisdom from God to know what the best decision is. The second reason why we tend to shy away from silence can be because we're bored. Like, it's boring to be in silence. It's boring not to hear some funny jokes from a comedian, not to listen to a funny sermon, not to hear great music, not to watch a movie. It's just boring to just be in your own thoughts and in your own head. I understand that. But the crazy thing is, what's wrong with being bored? Why do we hate it? I heard from someone somewhere, and I'm going to try to look it up and get a link to you in the description box, because I feel like I should back what I say up with some fact somewhere, some study. But I heard somewhere that because of, the internet, Wi-Fi, tablets, data, TV, all that stuff, because of all of the technology that we have, kids now are decreasing and declining in their imagination because they're constantly consumed with something. So when they're sitting in a car, they're just watching their TV instead of allowing for their imagination to grow out of their boredom. I remember when I was a kid, before I started to like reading, or even when I did, I guess, when I just didn't want to read, I remember I liked taking trips and sitting in the car, and sometimes I would just stare out the window, look at the trees, look at the sun, see the view. A lot of times I would make up stories in my head, Sometimes the daydreams weren't so good, so I had to stop doing that. But a lot of times, there were just cool stories in my head. The imagination can grow out of your boredom. When we allow silence into our lives, we can think of new business ideas. We can think of new songs, new story ideas. We can think of new ways to live our lives, to organize our days. Our imagination is wild, and it can be as big as we want it to be, but when we're consumed with so much other people's imagination or so much stuff, we don't allow our minds to come up with things ourselves. When we don't allow ourselves to be bored, we can't think outside the box to get out of that boredom with our own thoughts. Why are our thoughts boring? Because we're not used to sitting in them. We're not used to just being alone with our thoughts and ourselves, and that's it. I get it. It sucks being bored, but is it a bad thing for us? Can it be a good thing? Things to think about. Third reason why we tend to shy away from silence and why we need it though. Sometimes, especially me, myself, I could just speak for myself. If you guys don't relate, maybe you will, but tend to see it as a waste of time. Now, a lot of times for me, sometimes I want to do silence, especially in my rest days during the week. I want to do silence sometimes where I'm not doing anything. I'm just kind of just walking around or sitting. But when I say sometimes, in those times, I'm like, dang, I got this, and this to do. I got this, and this to do. I got this person to talk to. I got this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Sorry. Sometimes I'm like, I have so much to do today. I don't have time to go out and take a walk and think. I don't have time to meditate on the scriptures and be in silence doing that. I just don't have time. It's just a waste of time. I could have cooked 5 meals already. I could have dropped my kids off at work that I don't have kids, but in case you think that. But the thing about that is, one, silence is important in order to even just hear God's voice. A lot of times we're consuming so much, trying to get more knowledge, because we think if we're in silence, we could have been listening to a podcast to learn how to manage our finances better, or could have been listening to this music to know how to create music better, or whatever. We could have been listening to something to learn and to gain more knowledge. But a lot of times we consume so much that we're not allowing ourselves to listen to the Spirit and to listen to what God is trying to tell us. So much we can't feel God's presence, even though He's always around, but to recognize it as something else. To recognize all the good things He's created, to really look at the trees and its beauty and the sky and its beauty, and just to look around your apartment or your house and recognize what God's given you, or whatever it is, to really acknowledge your health and how or acknowledge anything good in your life, any blessings, God's goodness, to receive God's goodness and His love, to delight in Him, which was the theme of the week on my social media, just saying. In order to delight in Him fully, sometimes having that silence allows that, because we're not so consumed with other things. I just want to challenge you to try this silence thing out for maybe a week or two, even just to see how good it can be. Trying this silence out maybe just for 10 minutes. So whether it's 10 minutes of stretching in the morning in silence, or 10 minutes of walking, or just sitting without falling asleep, anything like that, and just actively even addressing pain that you bury deep down, or addressing the negative thoughts and the fears that we have, the anxieties, because the Bible says in Philippians 4 to release our anxious thoughts to God, right? But if we don't recognize those thoughts and that pain, how are we going to release it to God if we're just keeping it buried? It's always going to be there then, and always going to be creating some negativity in our mental health, and lowering our mental health. So we need to address it, recognize it, to release it to God. So just, if that's you, I mean, if it's not you, I still encourage you and challenge you to sit in silence and think through decisions, think through things. It really is beneficial. And if you hate it after a week or two, yeah, that's it. It's life. Maybe try again later. I don't know. If you enjoyed this video, if you appreciated this video, please comment below and let me know that that's true. It encourages me to continue. If you have another video or topic that you'd like me to talk about, also comment that below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Again, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit the reminder button to know when there's more. And I really do appreciate you all checking it out. It's helpful for me as well. And I just want to thank you. And I will see you next time.